In the heart of dazzling New York, Emily, a woman with burning ambitions, unexpectedly enters a dangerous game of passion with Nathan, a powerful yet mysterious CEO. A daring challenge arises. Spend an entire night without touching. Will desire or true love triumph when the line between heart and reason is only one touch away? The gentle late spring morning sunlight slipped through the window of the yellow taxi, brushing against Emily Carter's face like a warm greeting from the unfamiliar city she had always dreamed of. She lifted her gaze, and before her the skyline blazed with towering skyscrapers reaching as if to touch the heavens. A mix of excitement and nervousness surged within Emily, blending with the unusually rapid beating of her heart. She had grown up in Greenville, a quiet little town nestled amid the endless green cornfields of the American Midwest, where life moved at a slow, peaceful pace, much like the river that wound through her hometown. With fewer than 2,000 residents, it was a place where everyone knew each other so well that the sound of footsteps alone could reveal who was approaching. Greenville held a sense of safety and familiarity in her heart, but it also brimmed with limitations that a restless, ambitious soul like Emily could hardly endure. From a young age, Emily had stood out among her peers. While the other girls in town dreamed of cozy weddings with the boy next door, Emily would lie awake at night under the faint glow of her bedside lamp, lost in books about the vast world, lands she had never set foot in. She yearned to explore distant horizons, to live a life brimming with bold dreams, rather than settling for the simple fate others often deemed happiness. Emily had once been the pride of her small high school. Teachers spoke of her as a symbol of hope, living proof that anyone from Greenville could reach far beyond its borders. But when she left home, her mother's warm green eyes were filled with worry, while her father, though a man of few words, gazed at her with unwavering belief. "I know my daughter was born to do extraordinary things," he had once said. Her stellar degree from Harvard was both a source of pride and an invaluable stepping stone, opening the door to this dazzling, challenging world. A job at Harrison Global, one of New York's most prestigious corporations, wasn't just a promising career. It was a chance for Emily to prove herself. The taxi came to a gentle stop in front of a gleaming glass building where a steady stream of people flowed in and out like a mesmerizing slow-motion film. Emily took a deep breath, smoothing the navy dress she had carefully chosen the night before. Its elegant yet confident lines mirrored the person she had always aspired to become. The taxi doors swung open and her feet touched the bustling pavement of the big city. A strange yet exhilarating sensation washed over her as she stepped forward, entering an entirely new chapter of her life. Before her, the massive glass doors reflected her youthful, determined face. Crossing the threshold of the renowned corporation, a thought flashed through her mind, clear and powerful. This was the moment her life truly began. Yet, Emily could never have imagined that within the towering building, among the thousands of unfamiliar faces, a man was waiting for her. A man who would upend everything she had ever believed in and dreamed of. A man who would test her heart, her mind, and the boundaries she never thought she'd face. And it all began with a fateful moment lying in wait just ahead. The grand lobby of Harrison Global gleamed with polished surfaces and buzzed with energy, like the beating heart of a city that never slept. Hurried footsteps, confident glances, and conversations interwoven with the ringing of phones composed a vibrant symphony of power and ambition. Emily moved forward with cautious yet resolute steps, the sound of her heels clicking against the marble floor, a faint echo amid the clamor, yet enough for her to feel her own presence in this vast space. She approached the reception desk, her voice soft but carrying the confidence she naturally possessed. "Emily Carter, today's my first day." The young woman at the desk nodded with a warm smile, handing Emily a crisp new employee badge and directing her toward the staff elevators. Emily's heart fluttered with anticipation, unsure of what future awaited her up there, where critical decisions were made daily and where grand dreams could either come to life or shatter in an instant. As Emily stood waiting for the elevator, a subtle wave of stillness rippled through the crowd. The chatter softened, creating an odd silence she could feel distinctly. She looked up, and her heart skipped a beat as she realized the cause of this shift. From the main entrance, a man strode in with an air of pride and assurance, as if the world had been crafted solely to serve him. Nathan Harrison. Every eye in the lobby instinctively turned toward him, drawn by an irresistible magnetism emanating from this man. Tall and imposing, his perfect physique stood out in a tailored, expensive suit. His dark hair was neatly styled, and his piercing blue eyes, deep and cold as the ocean, held an enigmatic, commanding presence. Emily had never met him before, but she knew instantly who he was. Nathan's image graced magazines, economic news, and major events, yet no photograph had ever captured the full force of the allure she now witnessed. He moved with powerful strides, his gaze sweeping over the crowd as if surveying a kingdom he ruled. Then, as if pulled by an invisible force, his eyes landed on Emily. The moment their gazes met, a strange spark seemed to tear through the distance between them. Emily felt the world around her dissolve, leaving only those deep, commanding eyes. Nathan's look wasn't as cold as she'd imagined. Instead, it carried surprise, curiosity, and something deeper, more complex. In that fleeting second, Emily knew this was no ordinary encounter. It was a moment of destiny, an event that would mark the beginning of something extraordinary in her life. The elevator arrived, its doors sliding open as if jolting Emily from her brief trance. She stepped inside, her heart pounding erratically as Nathan, the most powerful man in the building, followed right behind her. The confined space suddenly felt cramped and charged with the weight of his presence. The rich scent of his expensive cologne enveloped her, overwhelming her senses. She tried to maintain her composure, staring straight ahead. But then Nathan's low, warm voice broke the heavy silence. "You're new." It wasn't a question, but a firm statement. Emily glanced at him and nodded slightly. "Yes, today's my first day." A faint, enigmatic smile curved Nathan's lips. He tilted his head slightly, as if committing every detail of her face to memory. "What's your name?" "Emily Carter." He repeated her name softly, as though savoring a beautiful sound he'd just heard for the first time. "Welcome to Harrison Global, Ms. Carter." When the elevator doors opened on the top floor, Nathan stepped out, but just before they closed again, he turned back to look at her once more. In that instant, Emily knew her life would never be the same. The look in Nathan Harrison's eyes had just told her that a fateful game had officially begun. The first 3 days passed in a whirlwind of work and unfamiliar faces, yet Emily couldn't shake the image of Nathan Harrison from her mind. The man who had unsettled her with just a fleeting glance in that small elevator. His voice, his gaze, even the faint scent of him lingered like an haunting melody, clinging to every breath she took, despite her hundreds of attempts to dismiss it. On the afternoon of her 4th day, as Emily scribbled new marketing ideas into her small notebook, a figure suddenly appeared beside her desk. "Emily, right?" She looked up to see Melissa, the girl from the neighboring desk, with golden blonde hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to observe everything closely. Melissa studied Emily with a mix of curiosity and concern. "I hear the CEO's already taken notice of you." Melissa's voice dropped low, as if sharing a secret not meant to be spoken aloud. Emily's heart involuntarily beat faster, but she managed a faint smile. "He was just greeting a new employee. That's all." Melissa shook her head, her gaze piercing as if she could see right through her. "Trust me, Nathan Harrison doesn't do anything out of mere politeness. He's the kind of man used to women throwing themselves at his feet, only for him to walk over them without a second thought. Don't get caught up in those looks, Emily. They're far more dangerous than you realize." Emily fell silent, her heart suddenly heavy with the blunt warning. What unsettled her more, though, was the small part of her mind quietly protesting, hoping Melissa was wrong. From that day on, whenever Emily crossed paths with Nathan in the office, his gaze lingered on her longer than usual, enough for her to notice his attention but never overt enough to be obvious. Nathan was like an ocean wave, approaching just close enough for her to feel his presence, then retreating before she could confirm whether it was real or just her imagination. One Friday afternoon, as Emily stood by the coffee machine lost in thought about an upcoming project strategy, a familiar voice broke through from behind her. "Do you like your coffee black?" Startled, she turned around. Nathan stood just a few steps away, his deep blue eyes glinting with amusement, as if trying to decipher her hidden thoughts. "Yes, black coffee keeps me alert," Emily replied softly, attempting to mask the sudden rush of nerves rising within her. He stepped closer, reaching for the cup of coffee she'd just brewed. Their hands brushed for a fleeting moment, sending her heart racing so fast she wondered if he could hear it. "Me too. It sharpens all the senses," Nathan said with a cryptic smile, "especially when you're trying to figure someone out." Emily raised an eyebrow, caught off guard, but striving to maintain her composure. "Who are you trying to figure out?" Nathan took a sip of his coffee, his eyes brimming with intent. "A woman I've never met before, someone who makes me pause and wonder why I can't stop thinking about her." Emily went still, struggling to steady her racing pulse. Melissa's warning echoed in her mind, erecting an invisible wall between her and the powerful man before her. She took a deep breath, her voice deliberately calm. "Maybe you should be careful with those thoughts. They could cause more trouble than you think." Nathan's lips curved into a faint smile, his eyes flickering with surprise and intrigue at her candid response. "I'll keep that advice in mind, Emily Carter." He walked away, leaving Emily with a tumult of emotions and a flood of unanswered questions. Her wariness grew stronger than ever, yet she couldn't deny the strange pull toward him that intensified with each passing day. That evening, as dusk settled and the office grew quiet, with only a few employees lingering late, Emily caught sight of Nathan through the glass walls of the large meeting room. He sat alone, his gaze fixed on the city skyline aglow with lights, lost in thought. In that moment, Emily found herself wondering, beneath his commanding, aloof exterior, was there a story of pain hidden away, or simply a lonely soul searching for something truly meaningful? That question unwittingly drew Emily deeper into the emotional vortex she was trying to avoid, a game she knew full well that once entered, she wouldn't easily escape. That evening, New York City shimmered with the glow of countless glass windows, a breathtaking masterpiece painted by the dreams of millions. A sleek black limousine glided to a stop outside a luxurious hotel in the heart of the city, the venue for Harrison Global's annual charity gala. Emily stepped out, her emerald silk gown hugging her slender frame, accentuating her radiant skin under the warm golden lights. Her wavy brown hair cascaded softly over her bare shoulders, and her eyes sparkled with confidence, though beneath them lay a quiet nervousness. Despite reminding herself this was just a work event, Emily couldn't deny her heart was beating far faster than usual. Entering the grand ballroom where the gala was held, Emily immediately felt the opulence and power of the space. The gentle strains of jazz mingled with the low hum of conversation, punctuated by the delicate clink of glasses. Guests dressed in lavish attire moved with sharp, calculating eyes, creating an atmosphere both extravagant and tense, a place where everyone wore a perfectly crafted mask. Amid the bustling crowd, Emily instinctively searched for Nathan's familiar figure. Just as she thought she'd safely blended into the throng, a hand lightly brushed her waist. She turned, startled, and found Nathan's deep, captivating blue eyes gazing down at her, mere inches away. "You look stunning tonight," his low, warm voice murmured, intimate despite the crowded room around them. Emily swallowed softly, masking her fluster with a faint smile. "Thank you, Nathan." He took her hand with an effortless grace, but she sensed a protective intent in the gesture, as if he were silently declaring to every curious onlooker that she was with him, untouchable for the night. The evening unfolded smoothly with polite exchanges and practiced smiles. But then, as the lights dimmed, Nathan unexpectedly guided Emily to a quiet corner of the balcony. where only the silvery moonlight illuminated them. "Why did you bring me here?" Emily asked gently, her voice laced with skepticism yet soft and genuine. Nathan gazed at her for a long moment, his deep eyes glinting with an emotion she'd never seen in him before. He took a shallow breath, his usual confidence seeming to melt away in that instant. "Because since I met you, I haven't been able to think of anything else. You make everything I've ever known feel meaningless." Emily's heart skipped a beat, but then Melissa's warning flashed through her mind, along with the stories she'd heard about this man. She shook her head slightly, her eyes guarded. "Nathan, I've heard too much about you. You're the kind of man who gets what he wants, only to walk away once you've had your fill. I don't want to be one of those women." Nathan met her gaze with raw sincerity, stepping closer, his voice dropping with emotion. "I know you have every reason to doubt me, but Emily, you're different. You're not a conquest. You're the only one who makes me want to be a better version of myself." She felt the honesty in his words, but her rationality held firm. Emily stepped back, creating a small distance between them. Her eyes were serious yet tender. "I'm sorry, Nathan. Words are easy, but proving them is far harder. I need more than a promise under the moonlight." He stood there, silently watching as she turned and walked away, her small yet proud figure blending back into the lavish glow of the ballroom. In that moment, Nathan realized Emily Carter wasn't a woman he could win with his usual tactics. And that realization made it clear this wouldn't be a simple game. It was the first true challenge of his life, and the very thing that made him desire her even more. The city that night seemed to sink into a hazy dream, its twinkling lights reflecting off the expansive glass windows of Nathan's penthouse, like distant stars bearing witness to their unfolding story. Emily stood silently, her eyes tracing the cityscape from the lavish room she'd never imagined stepping into. Her heart pounded like a war drum, bracing for the monumental challenge she was about to set for Nathan and for herself. Nathan stood a short distance away, his deep blue eyes quietly observing every subtle shift in her expression, as if trying to anticipate what was coming. "Emily, what do you want to say to me?" His warm, low voice broke the tense silence between them. Emily turned to meet his gaze, determination mingled with a flicker of anxiety shining in her eyes. "Nathan, I believe you genuinely want to change, but I need more than that." He stepped closer, but Emily gently raised a hand to stop him. She took a deep breath, summoning all her courage to voice the thought she'd harbored for so long. "I'll stay here tonight, but we can't touch each other. If you can make it through this night without touching me even once, I'll believe you truly love me, not just as a fleeting desire." A flash of surprise crossed Nathan's eyes, but he quickly regained his usual composure. A faint smile curved his lips. "I'll take your challenge, Emily, not just to prove it to you, but to prove to myself that I've truly changed." Time seemed to slow in the luxurious room, its sharp edges mirroring the turmoil within them both. Emily shed her clothes deliberately, each movement like a blade slicing through Nathan's pride and restraint. When she stood there, completely bare, her skin glowing under the soft light of the small lamps, Nathan felt his breath catch in his chest. He stood frozen, his hands clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Let's lie down," Emily whispered, her voice trembling slightly with nerves and apprehension. Nathan nodded silently, following her to the large bed. They lay side by side, separated by mere centimeters that felt like an impassable chasm. Emily could hear his rapid heartbeat, his heavy, tormented breaths cutting through the quiet night. She closed her eyes, trying to steady her own breathing, but inside a fierce storm raged. Time crawled by, each second stretching into eternity, the tension taut like a string ready to snap. Nathan shut his eyes, but Emily's image burned vividly in his mind. The desire within him swelled relentlessly, waging a fiercer battle than any he'd ever faced. As dawn loomed just a few short hours away, Emily shifted in her sleep, her arm brushing lightly against Nathan's chest. A tiny touch, but enough to shatter everything. In that instant, Nathan's instincts surged uncontrollably. His hand moved without thought, fingertips grazing the soft skin of her hip in a reflex too swift to restrain. Emily's eyes snapped open, meeting his with a look of deep disappointment and pain. Her whisper was faint, but carried the weight of a verdict. Nathan jolted awake from his trance, his eyes widening in shock and anguish as he realized he'd failed. "Emily, I didn't mean to." She shook her head slowly, sitting up, her gaze so sorrowful it felt like his heart was breaking apart. "One touch, Nathan, was enough to show me you haven't changed as much as you think. True love has to be stronger than instinct." Emily rose, quickly dressing herself. The room turned cold and empty as she moved toward the door. Nathan sat up, his eyes pleading desperately. "Please, Emily, give me another chance." She turned back for one final look, her eyes brimming with tears, yet resolute and stronger than ever. "Maybe we both need more time, Nathan." The door closed, its sound marking a painful failure Nathan knew he'd never forget. The first defeat that made him realize that to win Emily's true love, he'd have to pay a far greater price than he'd ever imagined. In the days following that failure, Nathan's life seemed to plunge into a vast, cold and empty darkness. The luxurious penthouse he once viewed as a symbol of success now felt stark and hauntingly silent. Each evening as the city faded into night, he stood by the window gazing down at the bustling traffic below, wondering what Emily was doing, what she was thinking, whether she still remembered him or had completely erased him from her heart. He knew he had deeply hurt Emily, and the even harsher truth was that he had wounded himself in the process. Nathan realized he had lived too long in a world where relationships were fleeting games of conquest, where victory was everything and failure something he avoided at all costs. For the first time, he truly understood that some things of value couldn't be claimed with power or wealth. They required sincerity, patience, and quiet sacrifice. With that fierce resolve, Nathan began to change, step by step. Each morning, he sat at his desk, pen in hand, writing letters to Emily. Not grandiose promises or shallow apologies, but words poured straight from the depths of his heart. "Dear Emily, I know no apology can erase the disappointment I've caused you. But I want you to understand that failure didn't just hurt you, it hurt me too. I've realized I've been living in illusions of power, believing everything I wanted could come easily. But you've taught me the most important lesson. True love isn't about possession. It's about sacrifice, patience, and facing challenges. I'll never stop proving this to you with everything I have." Day after day, each letter carried profound reflections on himself, his past mistakes, and his commitment to inner transformation. Nathan didn't expect replies from Emily. He simply wanted her to know he wasn't giving up, that he was still here, striving every day to become a better man. Beyond the letters, Nathan quietly reshaped how he ran his company. He began paying more attention to his employees' emotions, listening more, and making decisions rooted in empathy rather than imposed authority. Those around him started noticing a shift in the once cold man, now a Nathan who was calm, humble, and respectful. One late afternoon, as Nathan sat alone in his expansive office, watching the sky turn from violet to deep blue, Melissa stepped in hesitantly. "I know you and Emily are having issues," she began, her eyes cautious yet caring. "But there's something I need to tell you. Emily hasn't stopped thinking about you, but she's afraid of being hurt again." Nathan sat in silence for a long moment before meeting Melissa's gaze, with the most genuine look he'd ever given. "Melissa, I know what kind of man I used to be, but I've truly changed, and I'll do anything to make Emily see that. I can't lose her again." Melissa studied him briefly, then nodded slightly. "Then keep proving it, Nathan. Prove it with actions, not just letters or promises." Nathan nodded firmly, and from that moment his determination grew stronger than ever. He began appearing at charity events Emily had once attended, quietly contributing time and money without seeking attention, supporting from the shadows. He restructured his work schedule to ensure his employees had a balance between their jobs and personal lives, changes he'd never considered before. From a distance, Emily observed these shifts, her heart slowly stirring once more. Nathan's letters and his small but meaningful actions began to chip away at the icy wall around her heart. She realized that though he had failed, what mattered more was how he faced that failure and rose from it. One late evening, as Emily sat alone by the window of her modest apartment, watching the city drift into slumber, she opened Nathan's latest letter and read it again. A handwritten line struck her heart like an arrow. "I'll wait for you, Emily. Not because I believe I deserve forgiveness, but because I can't imagine this life without you." A faint smile touched Emily's lips, her eyes welling with tears. At last, she was ready to give him another chance, not just because he had changed, but because he had taught her that true love isn't about perfection. It's about the courage to overcome pain and find each other again. The gentle, late autumn afternoon draped the city in a soft golden light, as if soothing away the sorrows of the past. Emily stood before the familiar penthouse door, her heart racing as it had the first time she'd come here. But this time she understood her own heart more clearly and placed greater trust in the man on the other side. Nathan opened the door, his face flickering with surprise, his deep blue eyes lighting up with quiet joy as he saw Emily standing there. Neither spoke for a long moment, simply gazing at each other, as if words had become unnecessary in the face of the emotions swelling within them. Emily took a soft breath, finally breaking the silence, her voice gentle yet resolute. "I want to give us another chance, Nathan, but the challenge from before, I need you to prove it again." Nathan nodded slightly, his eyes unwavering. "I'll pass this challenge. Not just to prove it to you anymore, but to prove to myself that I've truly changed." This time, as Emily slowly shed her clothes, Nathan's gaze never strayed from her eyes, as if her soul was what he truly longed to behold above all else. She lay down beside him in the room, bathed in the soft glow of dusk, their hearts once again facing love's greatest test. Time passed quietly, not with suffocating tension this time, but with a serene trust that flowed between them. Nathan remained still beside her, his hands resting lightly at his sides, though every breath, every fiber of his being called out to her with fierce intensity. He understood now that true love wasn't about instantly satisfying his desires. It was about mastering them for the sake of the one he loved. Emily drifted into a brief sleep, and when she stirred as dawn began to brush the room, she found Nathan still awake, staring at the ceiling. The morning light gently caressed his face, revealing a Nathan Harrison transformed, steadfast, calm, and stronger than ever. "You didn't touch me," Emily said softly, her voice brimming with emotion. Nathan turned to her, his eyes tender. "Not because I didn't want to, Emily, but because I realized my love for you is stronger than any desire." Tears silently welled in Emily's eyes as she looked into that sincere gaze. For the first time, she felt absolute certainty in her choice. "I love you, Nathan," she whispered. He gently raised a hand, the first touch after the challenge, and brushed her cheek with infinite tenderness, as if she were the most precious thing he'd ever held. "I love you more than everything I've ever had or lost, Emily. Will you marry me?" Emily smiled faintly, tears glistening in the dawn light flooding the room. She nodded softly, her heart overflowing with joy. "Yes, I will." In that moment, Nathan drew her into his arms, the embrace gentle yet firm, filled with a happiness he'd never thought he'd find. They knew the road ahead would still hold challenges, but now they were ready to face them together, armed with deeper trust and love than ever before. In the room, awash with morning light, two once lost souls had finally found their way back to each other. concluding a journey of trials with a vow of eternal love. A promise not just spoken in words, but proven through the challenges they'd overcome and the transformations carved deep within their hearts.